For me, the message that I always try to get across is if you're not driving for yourself, drive for the person that you love most. Because for me, the person that I love most, I lost them. February 26th of 2017. And he was coming to my house that day. And we live about an hour apart from each other. But we always made it a point to see each other like 2, 3, 4 times a week, you know. He had an interview that day with Carytown Bikes, and that was like his dream job because he was an amazing mountain biker and he loved working on that stuff. So he got the job and everything. You know, it was a good day. It was a really good day. And then it was around 6:13, and I remember the exact time because I always tried to gauge what time I knew he would be getting home. And we were both very particular about being safe while driving. You know, he was never on the phone while driving. I was never on the phone while driving. It was when we were on the road, we were focused on the road. You know when you have an iPhone and you text another iPhone and the text message turns blue? And when you text an iPhone that's either dead or broken, it turns green. Well, he had left my house with a little over 80% on his phone. And I had texted him about 15 minutes after he had left, and it turned green. And that's how I knew something was up. My dad is on the fire department, so he knows when there's a call. And we get a call from a friend of his. He had called my dad, and he said, "Hey, by any chance, was Henry at y'all's house today?" My dad's like, "Yeah." And he goes, "I think you might want to get here." We pull up to the scene, and when we get there, there's a little traffic stop. And how they had it blocked off, you couldn't see anything. We were about maybe half a mile from where the crash even was. And we're in my dad's truck, and my dad's talking to the police officer through his window, and I lean over, I'm like, "Hey, what vehicles were involved in the crash?" And he's like, "Oh, a hog truck and a little SUV." And I go, "By any chance, was it a green Honda Element?" And he goes, yeah, it was." And my heart just dropped. So we pull over to the side, and I'm calling his mom like, "Hey, you got to get down here now. He's been in a crash." And she's sitting here asking me, "Is he okay? Is he okay?" And I'm like, I don't know. None of us knew anything at the time, and the police couldn't tell me what was going on because I wasn't immediate family. So we're all standing there freaking out. You don't have any answers, but when you don't hear an ambulance coming, that's never a good sign. So I'm standing there outside, and I hear over somebody's pager, "1 fatality." And I looked at my dad and I said, "Dad, was it him?" And he said, "Yeah, honey, I think it was." There is nothing that can truly describe that feeling. It's not like the stuff you see in the movies where you know, someone's just sitting there crying. Someone comes up, pats them on the back, consoles them, and no, it's not that. I collapsed onto the hard pavement, screaming. I wanted to run to get to him. But police and everyone were like, no, like keeping me back, wouldn't let me go. And then his mom is calling, like, hey, where are you? And I'm on the phone, and I know her son is dead. And how can you tell someone that they just lost their son? You can't. And I just gave my dad the phone. I don't really know what happened when he talked with her, but the whole week following that was just, you know, I felt like I was doing okay, like leading up to the funeral, and I honestly think that's because I was in shock. Like, I didn't really want to believe it. I think one of the hardest parts was that wasn't just my boyfriend, that was my best friend. When anything happened, you know, he was the one that I went to. We were the ones, we joked with each other. We'd tell each other anything, whether it be like serious or completely meaningless. And I just felt like I had no one to go to. Like, it was just like this feeling of like emptiness and loneliness and numbness. It's like the feeling of numbness just sucks because you feel there's nothing. So after that week went by, I think that's when it really started hitting me. I got my first college acceptance, and I literally picked up the phone and I called him. And then about 2 rings and I realized he would never answer. This whole experience is just, it hasn't just affected me, it's affected his family, his school, his friends, and you know, someone lost their son, his grandparents lost their grandchild, his big brother lost his little brother, his best friend that he had a plan to go like cross country with, you know, they would never have that trip anymore. He would never show up to work again. He never even got the chance to have at least work a day at the job that he just got that morning. There are so many things that he was supposed to do that he never got the chance to. Henry was doing nothing wrong while he was driving. You know, he was doing everything he was supposed to do. What happened was he was driving really tiny curvy road. Tractor trailers come on it all the time. He was driving, tractor trailer comes on his side of the road. Henry does what he's supposed to do, you know, 2 hands on the wheel, let's slowly edge off. But what he couldn't see was there is a foot of a drop there, almost straight down. Grass had grown over it, so he couldn't tell. When that tractor trailer came on his side of the road and he went to get over, those tires tipped in and his car lost traction and whipped him directly in front of that tractor trailer. And he was killed instantly. It's terrible, and I don't want anyone to have to feel what I feel every day. Like, his parents, what they feel. I couldn't even imagine what it feels like losing a child. No parent should have to ever go through that. You know, when a child loses its parent, it's called an orphan. When a wife loses her husband, she's called a widow. But when a parent loses their child, there's no name for that. And that's because that's something so unimaginable that no one wants to think of a name for that. No one wants to ever have to deal with that. I'm constantly living in worry and fear that something is going to happen to the next person. And why would you want to hurt the person you love most? You don't. So, if you're not driving for yourself, drive for the person you love most.